So, hi everybody, and welcome back to Elder Abuse Training. If you suspect something, say something. This is part 3, and we'll be exploring 3 case studies, which explore different forms of elder abuse.
Just a quick note before we start that each of the case studies we're going to discuss are based on real cases, real people, that the Elder Abuse Service has worked with. They have been de-identified.
So, case study number 1, and we've called this the health worker case study. I'll just read out the details of Marion, and then I'll pass over to the team here to have a chat about what they would recommend. So, Marion is 72 years old and has been living with her son David. She was admitted to hospital with pneumonia, but has since been diagnosed with multiple other health conditions. The note on the system from the paramedics stated that Marion's son David had refused her treatment and was arguing with paramedics. She has asked to be put into an aged care facility. So this is the scenario that we have. I want you listening at home to think about how you would help Marion, and in the meantime, our team are going to discuss some of the risk factors that they see and some of the options that they would recommend that you possibly take.
I mean, it's about speaking out, isn't it? Speaking out about your concerns. Look beyond Marion just as a person with a health condition. She's in a hospital with a health condition, but she's a whole person, and seeing her as a whole person, talking about those things that concern you. And part of those is her situation, with her son at home, what's going on there. So what do you think of the red flags in this case scenario, Tanya?
The biggest red flag is that Marion needed medical care and she didn't receive it. So it brings to mind, is there neglect? Is David preventing her from getting care, or is she just refusing to accept it? I think we need to look into it more and find out exactly why she isn't getting the medical care that she needs.
I mean, I see as a red flag that her health condition has changed all of a sudden. She's suddenly in hospital. She's talking about wanting to be put into an aged care facility. I mean, they're things that need to be explored a little bit more to better understand the situation. I think, you and I spoke about sometimes carer stress can be a real risk factor for elder abuse, and it may be that Marion's condition has changed all of a sudden, creating all this added stress on her son, David. Or it may be that David's just not performing his caring duties at all. But they're all risk factors that as a community worker you would be seeing. And I suppose what we would ask you to do is not just see Marion as having a health condition like pneumonia, but being able to identify those other big things that are happening in her life that are risk factors for elder abuse, and raising those conversations with your manager, in your team, and talking about what other services besides the immediate health services that might support Marion. So that might be a referral to our service if Marion's living on the Central Coast. It might be a link into the hospital social workers who will pick Marion up as part of their teamwork. It might be a referral to the Ageing and Disability Commission. But I guess what we're asking you to do as community workers is to see Marion as a whole person, spot those risk factors, talk about them with your team, talk about what services there are to support Marion, to link her in, to improve her situation.
So Lynn, from a social worker perspective, if you were seeing this client, what jumps out for you?
As the team were talking, the main things that do sort of not sit well, I guess for me would be, those aspects that talk about maybe those things around neglect that are sort of standing up and wondering if that's something that's happening there for her, or whether, there is a lot of stress that's happening for David in his caring role. So I'd be looking at the whole family. I'd be looking at what sort of supports and not sort of dividing at this stage that each would need. What sort of factors, we can, or safety supports that we can put in place for the whole of the family in this picture.
Lynn makes a really good point there. Sometimes we can help the older person by helping the people caring for them. So it might be that in this situation, David just needs some assistance himself. He might need some guidance on what his role is. he might need to better understand the level of care Marion needs. And it could be that in helping David, you actually end up helping Marion.
So moving on to case study 2, we have Angela, and we've called this one the in-home care case study. So once again, I will read out the information about her case, and then I'll pass over to my team to talk about the risk factors and any actions that they would recommend. So you visit Angela every second day at her home as an in-home care worker. Angela owns her home. You used to treat Angela in the main house, but recently she has been moved into the converted garage. The garage has no kitchen or toilet. She tells you that her daughter and grandchildren have moved in and, to quote her, they've taken over the home, and told her she needs to live in the garage from now on. Angela doesn't want to live in the garage, but she doesn't think she can tell them to leave. My daughter gets so angry, she says. Angela's daughter is now receiving the carer's allowance, but never seems to be home. Angela tells you that she is often left alone and that she has to use a bucket if she needs to go to the toilet when her daughter is out. Her daughter locks the main house and will not give Angela a key. So there's a lot going on here, but this is the scenario, and have a think about how you would help Angela and what you might do while we pass over to our team to get their opinions.
I think the very first red flag is probably the most obvious, which is that Angela owns a house that she can't live in. And I think anyone would feel confused and frustrated in that situation to think, how can you own a home and not live in it? So the very first one is she owns property, but she's being prevented from using it.
The other, I'll call it red flag to me from this case study, is just the complexity of elder abuse. You've got an older person living in a garage, it's her daughter and her grandchildren that are living in the house. I mean, we don't really know how that's happened, but clearly at some stage Angela has wanted to support her daughter and her grandchildren to be able to maintain contact with them. And I think we really need to acknowledge and respect that complexity to be able to really support Angela.
At the same time, I think we need to be cautious of the fact that she has mentioned that her daughter gets so angry. I think we need to assess whether there is any risk. When her daughter gets angry, what happens? Does she get verbally abusive? Does she get physically abusive? I think we need to find out what the risk is here.
I'd really like to get Lynn's input, our social worker. What stands out for you when you read a case study like that, Lynn? How do you unpick those family relationships?
For me, it's definitely like you were talking about before, Mary, the complexities in the family dynamics and the relationships. But I guess when we're talking with people who are, I guess, if you're somebody coming in, maybe providing support or care or just coming into seeing this sort of family, it's something that you won't sort of be wanting to have the opportunity to unpack all of that, and that could be quite a scary sort of place to start at. Maybe a lot of people in the community looking at this scenario, there'd be a lot of complex sort of thoughts that you might have, sort of, anger at the daughter, and this is where all the complexities come in as well. You might sort of go, well, I should be calling Centrelink and want to cut off her carer's pension. Obviously, she's not doing the right thing by this older person in the community. There's quite a myriad of different sort of, I guess, emotions that you might feel as well coming into this. But I guess that's when you look at the complexities of the family and what has gone on. Historically, there might be trauma and other sort of family dynamics that have played a big part in this as well. So that's where we want to, I guess, be supporting the elder person, see where she's at and what's happening for her. So really that complexity, there's a lot of levels there to be trying to unpack at that level.
I mean, I suppose first and foremost you'd be thinking, is Angela safe there? Is that a safe situation for her to be? Is it physically safe for her to be there? Is it medically safe for her to be there? And you'd be perhaps, my immediate thoughts would be filtered through that lens of safety to start with. Because this is so complex, it might be easy to think that there's nothing you can do about it. But recognizing that complexity, talking it out with your supervisor and with your team and raising the issues that you've seen, as well as getting more information from Angela, will help promote the links that Angela needs to be able to improve her situation. So it might be, if you're very concerned, it might be a report to the police if you make a decision that, she's unsafe staying there. But in the real life situation, Angela wanted to stay there. She just wanted to have a better relationship with her daughter, and she wanted to have access to the house. And so we worked with Angela to improve her boundaries in speaking with her daughter. We helped assist her get access to a house. We linked her in with some My Aged Care services so that she could get increased level of services at home. And as the legal part, our elder abuse service, we were able to ensure that she had access to the property that she owned.
If you, for example, right now were just a friend of this in-home care worker and they have just left this situation and they have called you up and they've said, oh my goodness, this is what's just happened. I don't know what to do. It feels wrong. You already know that that feels wrong. Something in you is telling you that's not right. I don't feel safe leaving Angela there. I've called a friend up enough to be able to repeat this to them to process it myself. If you were the friend, elder abuse service team here, what would you be recommending that person do? What could some options be?
Very first would be just to try to confirm, is she at any risk? Is there any immediate danger? If there isn't, then the second thing that comes to mind is just talking to Angela and finding out what she wants to happen. What is the outcome she wants at the end of this? Does she want her daughter and grandchildren out of the house? Does she want a relationship with them? I think talking to Angela, you get an idea of what she wants, and you can also put the control back into her hands, let her feel like she can actually do something about this situation, and then help her do it.
If someone like Angela is your client and you walk away from that situation feeling that concern, you need to speak out for your client. You need to speak out for your patient. You need to speak to your manager about the situation, speak to your team. It may be if Angela lives on the Central Coast, you can contact us at the Elder Abuse Service. If Angela doesn't live on the Central Coast, you can contact the Age Discrimination Commissioner, the 1-800 number that Jess is going to give you later on. If you are concerned about Angela's safety, you should speak to your manager, and your manager may make a decision to contact the police. But I think what we've spoken about earlier is if you can talk to Angela to find out what she wants, what she sees as a good outcome, because in doing that, you help support her voice, number one, but you also are working at developing a relationship of trust with her, and that's what Angela needs at the moment. She needs someone that she can trust, that she can talk to, that she can articulate what would be a good outcome for her.
So this is our third case study. This is Bill, and we've called this our aged care facility case study. Once again, I'll just read out the information from the case and then I'll pass over to the team to give their opinions and thoughts. So Bill's grandson takes him out to the club every Thursday for lunch. You notice that when Bill comes back from these outings, he's irritable and he wants to be left alone. The facility has organised a bus trip to a local event. It costs $20 a head. You ask Bill why he isn't going and he says he can't afford it. One day after lunch, you're sitting with Bill and you ask him what happens when his grandson takes him to the club. He replies that his grandson takes his ATM card and uses it to play the pokies. Bill sits nearby while his grandson is playing. They don't talk much, but Bill says it's still nice to see him. So this is the scenario, and have a think about what you would do in this situation while we pass over and hear what the team says.
Straight away, what jumps out to me is that even though Bill says it's nice to see his grandson, he still comes back from these outings irritable and wants to be alone, which indicates to me that maybe he isn't as happy with the outings as he is saying. So it's obviously is affecting him, and he's, not feeling good about this relationship he does have with his grandson. The second thing, obviously, is the financial concerns. It does sound like the grandson is taking advantage of Bill and using Bill's money. Any solution in relation to the finances would definitely need to take into consideration Bill's close relationship with the grandson and whether Bill wants to maintain it.
One of the things that jumps out for me is the power of connection. And, we talk about how the aged care worker sits with Bill after lunch and has a bit of a chat to him. And it's in that connection that Bill makes that disclosure about what's happening. And so, we talk about isolation being a risk factor for an elder abuse, and connection with older people is the antidote for that. Is there anything that kind of jumps out for you, Lynn?
Yeah, for me, I think there's connection in a lot of different ways here as well. Like you're talking about Mary, that rapport that he has built and Bill's been able to chat about what's been happening. It sounds like he's, also wants to have some kind of a connection with his grandson here and enjoys the outing to some extent. And maybe it's about that social connection. It's about how we can, provide that to older people as well. The more that people are out and socially connected, the less isolated they are, the less likely maybe they are also to experience some of these difficulties.
At the Elder Abuse Service, we can assist in trying to get that money back for Bill that his grandson has spent. But we would be also working with him to increase his financial security. So he's got his ATM card with him, and obviously his grandson either knows the PIN to use. And so we would be really working with him to think about what are other ways that we can protect Bill from this sort of financial abuse. So it might be a referral to a financial counsellor, or it might just be working through some simple solutions with Bill to improve his financial security. We'd be talking to him about his banking, but we'd always be talking to Bill about what does he think would be a good outcome. It might be about improving the boundaries that Bill has with his grandson so that he can say no when his grandson asks him for the use of his ATM card. It might be sending Bill out, without having his ATM card, but just $20 in his pocket so that Bill can just pay for his own lunch and maybe, a beer for his grandson, something like that.
Another thing that jumps out with this case study is that sometimes there's an underlying cause to the abuse. So it actually looks like the grandson might have a bit of a gambling problem. And perhaps if the grandson was able to get help for his problem, he would no longer need to take Bill's money, and it might improve his relationship with Bill. So once again, it's a case of sometimes helping a family member can have the side effect of helping the older person as well.
So I think this is another example of how complex these elder abuse cases are, and how everything you see on the surface may not just be everything that's going on. But I want to just ask your opinions about what you would recommend for this worker who's working in this facility, who's sat down with Bill, who's friends with him, and Bill has said this, and so the worker has now gone away and thought, that's not right. I mean, Bill's a nice man, he doesn't deserve that, it's his money. What can I do?
Definitely, it's something to be reported higher up. It's something that the organisation might already have some ideas of how to handle this situation. So reporting it to your manager, speaking to other staff, you might be able to brainstorm a way to address this problem. So you might discuss ways of changing the PIN number, not letting the ATM card leave the facility, but agreeing to refund reasonable receipts. So reporting it and talking to colleagues about it, you might actually be able to come up with solutions, or other people might have experienced something similar and already know how to deal with it.
But if Bill wants to get that money back from his grandson, it may be something you can just refer to our service if Bill lives on the Central Coast.
And again, it's around talking with Bill about, what he wants out of this and how he wants to address the situation.
And in the next part of this webinar series, part 4, Having the Conversations, we'll be talking a lot more about how to talk to older people who you're worried about and who you work with.
The only other thing that I'd add about Bill is that what stands out for me is that Bill's lonely, and you as a community worker may be able to connect Bill with some other social supports within the facility to help, fill that gap in Bill's life.
Okay, so this is the end of part 3, our case studies part. As always, if you'd like to contact us at the Elder Abuse Service, you can send us an email or call us. And again, if you or anyone you know is suffering from elder abuse, then please call 1-800-ELDER-HELP, 1-800-353-374, or get in contact with us.